How do you not give up? How do you stay hopeful or at least continue the will to want to keep pushing on in times like these? You know, every now and again, I kind of get all depressed and, well, I'm not necessarily happy. It's been a long time since I've been happy, and you hear all the time that you should find something that makes you happy. But I don't think that's necessarily a a good way to look at the world, to see what makes you happy. The reason being, how do you even pursue it, and how do you maintain happiness long term? That's just something I've personally never really understood. Because, okay, I'm doing this and I'm happy, but what happens when it goes away? Do I just stop and give up? I don't know. It's not particularly something that really makes sense to me, and I don't know why so many people follow that idea that just do whatever makes you happy. But I understand the sentiment behind it. The sentiment behind wanting to be happy is because, well, you feel good, and it's something that's quantifiable in a sense. Well, I don't think that's a good idea in the grand scheme of things of living your life, because it's not it's not that you can't be happy or shouldn't pursue happiness. It's just happiness is a very fleeting thing when you look at life. And I feel like people my age want to be happy, but don't have zero clue on how to be happy. And oftentimes we fall into this doom spiral when we look at the news or look at ourselves and compare ourselves to others, and we essentially just give up. We shut down because we're overwhelmed by the entire process or grand scheme of life. So we just give up. We lay down and die, and we just give up hope and resign ourselves to merely existing to those who lack the courage to, fucking blow their brains out, essentially. And that's the nice way to put it. But, I don't know. It's difficult, and I'm not trying to say that if you aren't happy, that you somehow failed, or if you are happy, you're doing it wrong. What I'm saying is the focus on being constantly happy, that your life is somehow a failure just because you haven't achieved something miraculous or well known amongst others, is, I think, not something that's good, essentially. I don't know. It's a very hard thing to quantify. Like, how do you quantify a happy life? How do you quantify that? Because everyone has a different interpretation. How does one interpret that? It's difficult. It's difficult because everyone has a different definition, and everyone has a different means of obtaining that. And I don't think it's very easy, or there's a one size that fits all when it comes to having hope or being happy. Because each person has, their own scale of what is measured on that level. Then you fall under the trap of, like, when people do lose hope or are struggling to find hope, they look to someone else to give them that, which isn't necessarily wrong to look for someone who fits a higher level of virtue or of good character. But I fear that a lot of people want to resign their own ability to make their own choices for the sake of certainty. That's the big thing, certainty. Certainty is what a lot of people want in their lives, and me too. I'm not particularly happy or feeling good about myself because, you know, I'm a young dude, and I'm, you know, almost going to graduate from university. So there's a lot of uncertainty in my life, and I'm just not feeling good. It's not fun to be not uncertain of one's path or future, because how the hell am I supposed to navigate that? Then you pile that on top of the whole, you know, you look on the internet, it's like there's no jobs, or, oh, I'm unhappy doing this job. So it just makes you very uncertain of what to do or where to go. And some people do just lose it. They lose it, and they give up. And I think that's a tragedy in and of itself, because it's not like you're just dying. Like, you get cancer and you die. That's one thing. It's tragic, but at least you are willing to live out the last moments of your life with your own autonomy. When it comes to the path of just ending it all, I just don't think it's tragic, because you're cutting your own life short by your own volition, by your own will, by your own volition. It's just something that's just tragic in a lot of ways, and you see it all the time. And some people, you know, become so mentally ill or mentally unwell that they essentially fall into self-destructive behavior, such as, you know, drug use, or in very tragic cases, oftentimes here in the United States, a school shooting, because someone's just not well. And, you know, a lot of people would like to blame the firearm, but fundamentally it's the guy's, you know, mental state, and some would say spirit, and I'm inclined to agree that his spirit is not doing well. His spirit has essentially become darkened, in a sense, where he has made the voluntary choice to destroy life senselessly. And for what purpose? Just for the sake of destruction, despite life itself. And, you know, you have those guys. Then you also have guys who resign themselves, remove themselves from the world, and disappear. Like, you know, incels, people call them, which, I mean, in some respects, it's probably true that if they had a relationship with a female, that things would get better. But I don't think that's necessarily true if they just had sex. Like, it's the very brain dead take is like, if they have sex, it's somehow going to get better. Like, they won't be an incel anymore, which it's not true. That's not true in my mind. Because fundamentally, it's a mindset. And that mindset is that, well, no one loves me, I'm unwanted, and I'm unseen, so fuck it all, I'm just gonna just resign myself, just give up, resign myself. It's awful. And yeah, I mean, for the average Joe, it's difficult. It's difficult. And I'm not trying to say that all these people should be like forgiven for all the bad things that they do, because it's not acceptable to engage in such bad behavior like some incels do, or view people in an inhuman way like women. You know, women have their problems too, but yes, they're not exactly saints either. But I think it's very, very uncharitable to view people like, you know, a school shooter or an incel with such an uncharitable way, but also understanding that what they did was horrendously evil. In no way do I justify what they do, but in this period, this age, I guess you could call it, it's so dark, and you see so much evilness in the world, and it doesn't help with social media, with the news, and politics in general. I think if society became less political, I think a lot of people would be a lot more positive thinking, because there wouldn't be this senseless factionalism, this senseless antagonism amongst people. So it really does come down to, well, what the hell do we even do anymore? Like, what's the plan? What's the game plan? How do you stay hopeful? Not want to fucking give it all up? Well, I don't particularly have an answer because I struggle with the concept as well. But I think taking it slow and contemplating what you seriously want in your life is good. Just like sitting down in silence and just contemplating. And when you do that, you'll certainly learn a couple things. Like, are you comfortable enough, like, just sitting in silence, just with your own thoughts? That's a sure sign to find out the type of person you are. Another thing you could do is pursue creative pursuits. I think in this modern world, there's been placed such an emphasis on monetary wealth instead of the leisure in life. There's this stupid idea that work is inherently moral, and that the more you work, the better a person you are, or the more valid you are. That's not true. I was never raised under the idea that more labor equaled more morality. That's kind of a I don't know how you would describe it. It's a tradition that comes from the Protestant work ethic, because those people believed in the idea of predestination. And those who don't know what predestination is essentially that, well, God has predestined people to be saved or not to be saved. So and for them to, be sure as to that they're saved is by showing themselves, well, I have all this wealth, I have all this money, so therefore I'm saved. It's a very materialistic view, a very consequentialist view at God, which is, I don't think that's true. That's not how God worked. Like, all these Protestants claim to, it's not all Protestants, but a lot of these Protestants claim to say, they read the Bible, but have they not read the book of Job? That book essentially goes against the entire concept of predestination, because it essentially says, well, no, if you're saved, it doesn't necessarily, like, if you have all this wealth and all this money, it doesn't necessarily mean you're saved. It means nothing. It just is. So you can't really explain it like that. So fundamentally, it's more about pursuing what is good for your soul, what is good for your mental state. It's all up here in the noggin. So I don't agree that the more you work, obviously work to like take care of yourself and the others that you need to take care of, but I think pursuing more leisure activity, and if you can, like, live a more frugal lifestyle so you can work less. I don't think that you need to be rich to be happy, or money equates to success. I just don't think that's true. It makes no sense. That's not how people work. It's a very materialistic mindset, and we need to remove ourselves from that mindset, because that's just not how the human being works. We don't make sense. We're irrational apes. It makes like, just don't try and follow what everyone in society is trying to tell you. It's just like work and labor and slave away, and just let yourself waste away by merely existing. No. You should seriously pursue what's good for you. You should seriously think and contemplate, well, maybe I should try doing this. Maybe I should make a piece of art, or sing something, or play music, anything like that. But I think that's enough rambling for one day. So I'll talk to you guys again later, and I hope everything goes well for all you.